What is up, everybody? I'm Nolux, given here with your afternoon snap, and today we're going to be talking about a critical role player in my Galactus Knull deck, and that is Cloak. You can see that we've got Central Park as the first location, which is really annoying. A squirrel at all three locations means we've got nowhere to play our Galactus. So we'll need to clean those up. You can do that either with Cloak or with Killmonger, though for this game in particular, only Cloak actually would have worked, and you'll see why in a second. But Cloak can also do some other cool things that we're going to look at in the next few games as well. But our third location is TVA, and that's why we needed Cloak, because turn 2, we needed to play Cloak to move the squirrels out of there, so that way we could turn 3 wave for a turn 4 Galactus, blowing up the TVA before it ends the game completely. So really sweet one, I thought. 3 problematic locations: Isle of Silence stopping Knull, Central Park, and TVA, both trying to totally stop Galactus, but we had the tools to get out of this sticky spot. And I'm going to play Wave, my opponent is going to play a Brood, and then we are actually going to see them retreat because they figured that the game was over and that we were going to play a bigger card than them with Wave. So they throw in the towel there, and we'll move on to the next one. But still thought this was a pretty sweet game despite not getting to play it out thanks to my opponent thinking that we had a TVA game. But Cloak isn't just good for clearing out squirrels and debris, it's actually an important combo piece to the deck in certain situations. So that's what we're going to take a look at in these next 2 games. Basically, you can use Cloak to move Magik out of Limbo, and that's important because then you can play Galactus into Limbo. So I'm going to go ahead and snap, seeing that we've got all of those combo pieces in this game, and that's not always important to do in every game, but it is cool when it comes up, and the reason that it's good as well is it allows you to draw a little bit deeper in your deck, potentially find Knull, Shang-Chi, and some of those other cool cards that can contribute to you winning the Galactus location. Location number 3 in this game is going to be Mindscape, which could potentially make things a little bit trickier in terms of having a bad location here. It just means that we'll probably have to Magik into the Mindscape and then move out of there, or we could just wave this turn and then play Galactus right now. So both of those are definitely options. We've drawn the Shang-Chi, so that can be pretty nice for us as well. And I'm gonna go for the wave. That is my initial plan, and I'm thinking I'm just gonna play Galactus here. That's my thought process, at least right now. But then my opponent winds up snapping right here, and this kind of scares me. Obviously, we had either, well, they're going to snap in just a second. There we go. You can see I was about to put down the Galactus. I had made up my mind. I was like, okay, Galactus time. They snap. I go, wait a minute, never mind. Something's up. They might have Arrow. They might have something else that could just be gnarly for us. So I want to play around that, and we have the extra flexibility to do so because we have Cloak and Magik. So I'll just go for Magik, as will my opponent. That is going to turn Mindscape into Limbo, and that'll give us an extra turn, some extra information to decide exactly what we're doing this game. So in turn 5, you just play Cloak into either of the other locations, and I do want to point out I make a mistake here. I drew Death. So in part, I was thinking that playing Psylocke would give us an extra energy, and it would also allow an additional card to die. It's not going to increase the power of Knull, but it will increase the power, or it will decrease the cost of Death. So I was thinking that Psylocke was kind of free here, though it actually comes at a pretty big cost, and we'll talk about that in a second. As long as you don't play the Psylocke to the Clintar location, though, that would have been terrible because then I couldn't move everything out of Limbo. So you don't want to play Cloak by itself in this specific instance. So that's what we'll do on turn 6. We'll move Wave, Magik, and Yondu into Clintar, so that way we are free to drop Galactus in Limbo. And I mentioned that Psylocke could have been a mistake, and here's why. Right now, we just gave my opponent the opportunity to play Arrow into Nova Roma, which would have been absolutely terrible for us. Then we wouldn't have gotten our Galactus, and all of this would have been a waste. So that's something to watch out for as well. Don't play the extra Psylocke. just leave yourself with one full location, so that way Arrow can't mess with you on your galactic turns whenever you can, whenever possible, and that will definitely help you out. But also, one thing important to notice here is that we gave my opponent a free death. They stole that from the White Queen, so they're going to have access to an extra 12 power in whatever location we wind up Galactusing in regardless. So that could get a little bit sketchy. It could get a little bit tight in this one, but with Knull, I'm hoping that we still have enough power to break it down here for the win, and we'll see what my opponent winds up going for. We also have Shang-Chi, so we definitely have some tools at our disposal. It's just going to come down to my opponent. You know, it's a tough turn whenever you throw Cloak in there. You got a lot to think about, and my opponent is eventually going to make a pretty good play here. They move one card out of limbo, so that way they can throw in a Devil Dinosaur and still have room to drop that death that they stole from us. We'll blow up everything else, which is going to give us a pretty large Knull, and then we are going to be down by 17 power here. So it's a little bit tricky, and honestly, there's two real decisions that we could make. We could just go Knull plus death, and I think that that's a pretty good option, or we could go death plus Shang-Chi. We're pretty sure my opponent is going to be playing that death, so we could just get them there. Though, if my opponent plays Cosmo, then we would lose. So because of that, I'm just going to go for Knull plus death. 37 power on the final turn seems like a pretty safe bet to me. So that's what we'll go for, and it will be enough. My opponent will, well, let's see. I guess, what could they even play here with priority? I don't think anything. It is still going to be a close game because my opponent is going to drop 12 more power to the board. So they will go up to, I guess they drop 10 more power, so they go up to 31, and then we will be at 39. So pretty close game, all things considered. Let's just jump ahead a little bit more. My opponent is taking their sweet time. Okay, there we go. They do play a death indeed. So 31 to 39, and we walk away with 8 cubes. But that game, I didn't actually have to Cloak plus death. So I did want to take a look at one more game where I basically have to do that. And we'll see why here in a second. I wind up throwing Yondu into the first location. I've since learned better, and I always throw Yondu into the unknown locations, so that way we can save some of these more neutral locations to drop our Galactus in. And here is where we start to see a little bit of a problem, because Sanctum Sanctorum is location number 3, so Galactus cannot go there, and my opponent has won that location with Maria Hill. So a little bit awkward. That means that we'll definitely be playing Galactus into Kalintar. But as we'll see in a second, that one is not going to work out either, because my opponent is going to Storm in Kalintar, and we don't have the energy to cast Galactus this turn. And if we play Galactus into Hala, that's not going to work out unless my opponent destroys all of my cards in Hala, which they really have no incentive to, with the fact that we just played an Electro there. So they want that Electro to stick around. So basically what I have to do here is Magik into the flooded location just to give us a chance of winning this game. And we haven't drawn Cloak yet, but this is literally the only play I can hope to make to give us some chances here to win. My opponent's going to play Moon Girl into the flooded location, which we will go ahead and change over to Limbo to give us another shot here, and then Hala will activate. So now I get to play Cloak, and I could play Cloak either in Hala or Limbo typically, but because we want to make use of Limbo, I'm going to play Cloak into Hala so that way I can move Magik out of there and drop Galactus in. So that's the plan, and we're going to see exactly how that works out here. But Cloak, drawing Cloak this turn was literally the only card in Marvel Snap that would have given us a chance with this deck. Obviously, maybe we could have just drawn some other stuff, but we could have, like, yeah, I don't know. I don't want to spoil it because I just thought of the card that my opponent is going to play in about a second. But we're going to Galactus into Limbo, and my opponent into their Wong is going to wind up playing a Dr. Doom. So let's take a look at that in a second. That will fill up the other 2 locations with Doom bots, which makes this a pretty interesting game because my opponent is winning in Limbo by 13, but we're about to blow up the other 2 locations. So they're winning by a lot in the only location that matters, but my opponent recognizes what's going on here and they decide they don't want to stay in it. They lose to Knull, they lose to Death, and, well, we've got them both. So we get to drop a ton of power into this location on the final turn, and they are going to go ahead and retreat. But really, really sweet one, I thought, where really only Cloak could save us because 2 of those locations were totally turned off. So we were very limited in what we were actually able to do this game, but we were able to find the win here still. I wanted to look at one final game where I get a little cute with Cloak. We're going to throw Cloak over into Mojo World, our 3rd revealed location, and I'm just kind of hoping that my opponent wants to move some cards. And it makes sense. You want to hang out over in Mojo World, especially with some cheaper cards like Quinjet. And I think that this is kind of a way that a Galactus deck can make use of Cloak. You just kind of play it out there, hope that your opponent moves some things, and then you get to destroy some more things with your Galactus, giving you a cheaper Death, a bigger Knull. It's kind of the game plan here, or at least the idea. We don't know if my opponent is going to bite, but I think they will, at the very least with the Quinjet, right? Because it's basically free in terms of helping you try to win Mojo World. And I'm going to play Galactus into Washington, D.C., assuming that the Quinjet is moving out of there, and I'm actually even going to go ahead and snap, too. But my opponent also has a pretty cool idea. They are going to have cheaper cards in their hand for Moon Girl and Quinjet, which means on turn 5, they actually get the opportunity to deploy. And they do move over the Quinjet. I got really excited when I saw this Quinjet move over. But then my opponent plays double Cosmo. So they were covered on all of their bases here. And that is going to mean that I can't Galactus. Sweet play by my opponent. And then they'll go ahead and snap. So I will get out of here. And that will also be it for today's video. So if you enjoyed the video, make sure to hit that subscribe button. And thank you guys very much for watching. I'm No Lux Given. Peace.